Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi ho everybody and welcome back to D Plus Us Weekly, the show where we talk about shows exclusive to Disney Plus. Mitch, Bright Suns, how are you doing today?
I'm a little underwhelmed, if I got to be honest.
Yeah, that seems to be the case for a lot of people. Remember, folks, we were talking about The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 2, Chapter 18. Oh, the way they number these episodes is never not going to hurt me. Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore. Full spoilers, as always. We'll start relatively spoiler-free to start out. Mitch, you were kind of underwhelmed, you said?
Yeah. It was, I enjoyed this week more than I did last week. I can say that much. And I think it was more so the runtime and the fact that it felt like a meteor episode. But it just felt like nothing really happened. Like, we got Mandalore, but
it was an episode where a lot happened, but nothing happened.
Exactly. Like, there's a lot of progress in Din's journey, but it felt very uneventful in that, okay, we got some monsters and we're fighting some monsters, then we're getting trapped, and then we're not getting trapped, and then we're getting trapped again. It was just like there was a lot happening without a lot happening.
Yeah, this felt like some of my favorite episodes of the Clone Wars. And I mean that both in a very positive way and a not so positive way of there's some fantastic character development in this episode.
Yeah.
And the character development it does have for the characters in it is amazing and awesome, and I love seeing it.
It really just Bo-Katan for me.
Bo-Katan and Grogu for me.
I suppose.
But it doesn't really progress the plot forward in the way I think anyone was expecting. I still had a great time with this episode.
I enjoy. Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I enjoyed it, but I've grown to expect more from Mandalorian episodes, and this just wasn't it for me.
Yeah, we're going to go full spoilers into this now, but before we do that, folks, please let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. And hey, if you're over on podcast services, head on over to the YouTube and let us know. Maybe subscribe while you're here, check out our videos. We are making a big video push, and we would really love it if you came and hung out with us here. See our faces, see all the posters I put up behind me. Mitch, I'm really happy about these posters, about the plants.
They're beautiful. I mean, what else can you say? I mean,
I'm going to turn this room into a forest. That is my goal. You can
sure try as long as the plants don't continue to die around you.
Well, here's the trick. Fake plants. Fake plants won't die on me.
So I got to send you some pictures of the plants we got because total tangent. Yeah, let's get into spoilers for Mandalorian, but first talk with Griffin and Mitch. So we had a ton of fake plants because we lived in an apartment before we moved into the house. So like there wasn't really a good spot for anything to get decent light in the apartment because it was like a weird configuration at an angle. It was no good. So everything was fake. And then we moved into the house. And when you buy a house, Griffin, I'm warning you now, everyone's gifts, plants.
Oh, heck
we got so many goddamn plants when we moved into this house. People are just like, oh, you have a house, so there needs to be plants everywhere. Why? I don't know. There just are. So we've got a couple of plants that are thriving. And I will send you some photos after this. Maybe I'll put some on Twitter. Tag @D+Us with no context.
Yeah, just send us plant pictures.
Yeah. And others that need a little more TLC. So I still prefer the plastic plants, but Carmen loves having these real plants throughout the house.
Here's the thing about the plants in this room is this is but a fraction of the plants that I have in this apartment.
Oh, Lord.
I have so many. It is a problem. I recognize it's a problem, but I don't care because I really like having them. It also like forces me to like take care of something, which I really like. Keep that schedule, but we're not here to talk about plants as much as I want to. We are talking about Mando. The Mines of Mandalore. First off, yeah, I love that this was a Bo-Katan episode. This was about her.
Yeah.
And she deserves it. She is a badass, and we got to see that, and that was fantastic.
There was some weird writing decisions and foreshadowing, like Bo-Katan and Grogu's relationship moving forward. Her familiarity. Like, she's like, I knew some Jedis. How are you with the Force?
I thought it was cute. I thought for sure we were going to get a name drop in that, too.
Oh, I totally imagine of her being like, yeah, I knew Ahsoka, and he'd just be like, who? But no, not yet. They'll figure out that crossover when they get to it, I suppose. But it just moments of it felt fabricated and didn't feel genuine to the characters, or at least like it felt like we were watching a stage production of a Mandalorian episode, if that makes sense, where it was much more exaggerated and almost caricaturish of how the characters were being portrayed versus the way we've seen them characterized in previous seasons or previous iterations, especially looking at Bo-Katan.
How so?
I know
I'm not sure I agree with you there.
it just elements of it felt very like you said, it felt like an episode of Clone Wars where, you know, we know these characters, we're familiar with these characters, but it felt like a very serial monster of the week. We're doing a thing here. I can hear what the opening like the narration would have been to an episode of Clone Wars for this. It feels very standalone. It doesn't feel as interweaved into this. Like they wrapped up this stuff with Mandalore so quickly that I don't know where the rest of the season is going. And while I'm happy to not know where we're going, it didn't feel earned that by chapter 18, so episode 2 of season 3, we got this, you know, kind of lackluster resolution to the whole explore Mandalore. Oh, it's not poison. I went in the water and then got yeeted by some water monster.
See, I think the way I'm taking this is a bit different. I like the isolation of it because for me, it shows we are sticking to this story this season. This is where we're sticking for it. We are exploring Mandalore. And for me, this was the tip of the iceberg. This is the stuff that's working for now, but we have so much more to explore with Mandalore.
I hope so. I didn't get that sense myself. I felt like, oh, okay, so he did the mind thing and now he's going to leave and they're going to set up some conflict with Bo-Katan or whatever down the road that's going to lead to someone wanting to reclaim the throne of Mandalore or something. Great. But it felt like for Din and Grogu, this is the end of their Mandalore journey. Just because he'll go back and be like, yeah, Mandalore was explorable, and then the Mandalorians will decide, like the Watch will decide what they're going to do. But
so I think a lot of the reason why I'm feeling the way I am is because of Bo-Katan, and particularly the way she's talking about Mandalore, both to Grogu, but also mostly to Din.
Mm-hmm.
Of how she's talking about this fractured people, right? And it is this very, we are a people that are warring within ourselves. It's very poignant for Mando, which is essentially just live action Clone Wars at this point. Like,
I mean, that's anything Filoni touches at this point.
Look, the way I see Mando at this point is that this is made for a teenage audience, and we're kind of just here chilling. Which I'm here for. It's a fun time. It's still a great show. But I really think we're kind of getting these hints of like the religious deconstruction of that cult, right? It's something I talk about a lot because it, for some reason, it keeps popping up in popular media. But I really think we're kind of going to delve into that a little bit more through her essentially debates and arguments with Din. Like when they get down to the mines, get down to the waters, and like he is fully like practically in shock at seeing all this for the first time, and she is poo-pooing all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's reading this plaque and it's like, this is a ridiculous joke.
Well, because like her experience on Mandalore is the pomp and circumstance of what it meant to rule, whereas Din's experience is that this is a holy site, essentially, right? Mandalore is this thing that they can't have due to the great purge and all of that. And I do hope we get more exploration of that and how Mandalore fell, because we've gotten flashes of it, but I think like a full-blown episode of the fall of Mandalore would be really cool to see as part of this season of The Mandalorian. I don't know if we get it just because we only have 4 episodes left.
Also, if we're being honest,
6, like
that is an expensive episode.
But this is also The Mandalorian.
Yeah, but this is expensive on levels that the MCU won't even touch to do that right, and to do that in live action.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think Filoni would do it in live action.
The actual fall of Mandalore is an entire season of content for just how much they go through. And we've seen glimpses of it. We've seen bits in Rebels, especially with Sabine and her family there in the Black Watch and yada, yada, yada. Go watch Rebels. It's awesome. like I could totally see them doing it at some point, but I don't think you can touch that in a single episode. Like to me, the fall of Mandalore is an equivalent to Order 66. Of it is something that if you do this, it is going to be referenced a lot. And we're going to keep coming back to it.
According to IMDb, and I ought to believe that this is a thing, just because based on what we saw, and also it looks like Wikipedia confirms that the sea creature that we saw was a mythosaur, which is
I was assuming that, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Mandalorian crest, essentially, like that emblem that has the horns and everything. Because we saw the horns, that thing was massive, and I wonder if that creature will play some role in the inevitable encounter between Bo and Din for the rule of Mandalore, and
Mando's
how that's all going to go down.
Mando's going to write it. I'm calling it now.
I hope so.
I also still don't think it's going to be them. I still think it's going to be the cult versus everyone else. No, I think it's going to be the cult versus everyone else, and Mando's going to fight against the cult. I think that's a very, frankly, kind of obvious story, it seems, that they're setting up. But I'm here for it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I that's my thing, is they're not the hints that you're getting, I'm not recognizing in the same way. So I'm really curious to see where this goes with the next couple of episodes to set up what will be the major conflict of the season, because my thought process was, the return to Mandalore and the redemption of Din was going to be central to the plot of the entire season. And we've resolved that in episode 2.
I really think what's going to happen is he's going to have this redemption, right? He's going to go back to the cult, and they're just not going to believe him. I don't think they're going to believe him.
He's got to take some evidence back.
But what evidence do you take back that is good enough for them, less than like bringing the plaque or bringing them in desecrating a sacred site, or taking the goddamn mythosaur, which is just impossible. Like, oh, here's some water from the mines. That's not going to do it for anyone.
I think perhaps the fact that he had a droid with him is going to be to his advantage. Having that R5 unit, like it, very similarly to how Bo knew where Mando was, the historical data within the R5 unit, the fact he took this air sample, they can probably take soil samples as well to confirm. Like, there will be enough evidence to convince them that Mandalore is livable. And I think, like, there's also that moment where Bo says, if the weird monkey lizard things were able to survive, what else survived? And that is something worth exploring through the rest of the season for sure.
See, the only reason I don't think it's going to happen is the religious aspect of all this. Of, like, when you believe something, you believe something.
Yeah. And
we see that to much more significantly hurtful ways in reality. So let's talk about Star Wars. Right?
Yeah, we'll try to keep it there.
Hey, we tried with Andor. That did not happen. So it's almost like media...
Next to impossible.
It's almost like the media typically mirrors the world that we live in. But I think that it's going to come to a point of like, hey, I was here. Here's my proof. And they're not going to take it. They're not going to believe it because it goes against pretty much everything they've come to believe in now.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fascinating. But to step aside from that point to a second and talk about the actual point of the episode, one of my favorite things we saw in this was the use of the Darksaber. Particularly in Mando using it and being absolutely terrible with it, like really feeling the weight of that saber. And then Bo-Katan just master of it. Like you can tell, like especially with her shield built into her armor, like she has built herself around using this weapon and seeing that. I love seeing this anytime they show it because it harkens back to me to this episode in Rebels where it was Sabine learning to use the Darksaber and talking about how heavy it was because she didn't really understand the weight of using a lightsaber.
Yeah. I also think we're going to, like, getting Bo mentioning, her family and the way she was raised on Mandalore. I fully expect Sabine to show up in this season of Mandalorian and that to be our backdoor into what will be the central plot of Ahsoka.
Well, where the space whales aren't good enough.
Space Whales, yes, but also like I think there would be weight to an interaction between Bo and Sabine with this understanding the gravity of the situation with what's going on between the different Mandalorian factions and how to
For what it's
unite the
worth,
peoples under
I
one
think it's
banner.
happening too. I just like to make
Yeah.
fun of the Space Whales because I loved it.
They're the best.
No, I think Sabine's a shoo-in for this kind of show. And like, yeah, I do think it would be very much a back end of like, hey, let me help out for a second, but I've got something more important. I have to go find my best friend in the entire universe.
Well, also like just a reunion between Ahsoka and Bo-Katan would be out of this world.
That would be
right?
amazing. But like Bo-Katan and Sabine specifically is
Well,
such
they're cousins, right?
It's their cousins, but also Sabine is responsible for the massacre of a ton of Mandalorians after the fall.
Yeah.
So like her name is weighted with a lot of shit. And yeah, they've reconciled that storyline in Rebels, but I mean,
to what extent has that fractured over the years, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, I would love to see her show up in this, but like seeing that Darksaber storyline that we're getting, and let's just assume none of that happens, and we come to a point where, realistically, if Din is going to get trained by anyone to use the Darksaber, it is Bo-Katan. Like, she is really the only person who can train him to use that.
It's Bo-Katan or it's Sabine, really.
Mm-hmm.
That we are aware of that have wielded the saber to any like realistic degree.
Because anyone else to train him would be a Jedi, and like, let's be honest, Luke's not coming back. If he is, he's not coming back. I think they keep Ahsoka out of the season because that show is supposed to start at the end of the year.
The only thing I could see that would bring Ahsoka into this conflict is her existing relationship with Bo-Katan and Sabine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a way that they could do it that wouldn't feel too heavy-handed. And that would give you, because we get these hints of like, oh, you're some kind of Jedi. I knew Jedi. And it does feel like they're probably going to lean into it again just to get Din the training that he needs.
I hope they don't. Like, the reason I like these first couple episodes is because it feels like Mando without all the fan service. Like,
I mean, realistically, at some point, we're getting a time jump, and Grogu is going to be the Mandalorian and is going to be the wielder of the Darksaber as a Force-sensitive Mandalorian.
Yeah, but not this season. That's a couple seasons
No.
But like, I'm saying for this season, it feels like the best parts of season 1, season 2. Like, I love for season 1 how isolated that story was. And for season 2, I like that it was a bigger story, but I didn't necessarily love that it was fan service moment after fan service moment after fan service moment. Fan service is good, but it was just it was too over the top for me. This feels like the right level of fan service, getting with like, oh, I knew some Force users. That's perfect. That's all I need. Because like, yeah, you knew some Force users. Like, getting that much and still focusing it on this Mandalore story, I think is the way to go for the rest of this season.
It is.
Who the hell knows what the rest of the story is going to be? But
I could see this being the final season of The Mandalorian that focuses on Din. I could see this conflict ending in his demise, and we get an Avengers Endgame-esque, 5-10 years later, and we were following Grogu in his journey to reclaim the Darksaber from whoever it is that killed Din and took over the rule of Mandalore that we weren't expecting, or something like that.
I can see them doing it eventually, but I still think we're too far out for that. And the reason I think it is one man and one man alone. Pedro Pascal. He is on fire right now. You don't just throw that out.
You don't, but also, like, imagine the headlines.
See, again, like, the headlines are going to be great. They're going to do that, though, when they need the headlines. Yeah. And they don't need the headlines.
It doesn't feel like I agree with you. I don't think they need the headlines, but I think Filoni's style of storytelling doesn't lend itself to this being a Din-led adventure much longer. I think he's like, you look at things like Rebels, like Clone Wars, then the spinning off into Bad Batch. I don't think the Din story is more than 3, maybe 4 seasons.
See, his might not, but Favreau's does. And like we talk about Filoni a lot. Filoni is not the head of this project.
No, Favreau.
Favreau is. And Favreau loves this character. We're not stepping away from him. But,
I
like
never say
Favreau
no.
has his issue. Favreau is fantastic. I love him. I love him so much. He's not
You've got
perfect,
an Iron Man
but
helmet next to you. We get it.
people can't see the Iron Man helmet. So
Oh,
I'm kind of slowly phasing that out of here. Because again, I love MCU Tony. I hate Tony everywhere else.
Reasonable.
Like, I love the dude. He has his issues. I do think we're sticking with Din, though. Like, I also think it's way too early to call as well. We are on episode 2 of this season.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
I think that's where the stakes are going to be for this show moving forward, and whether it's this season, next season, or in 17 seasons, there needs to come a time where we cut ties with Din in an incredibly tragic way that sets Grogu up to be like. I feel like the story of the Mandalorian isn't the story of Din. The story of the Mandalorian is the story of Grogu. Grogu is the Mandalorian. Din is just daddy.
I also see Mandalore. I still see Mandalorian as separate from either of them. I think it is still the entire culture of the Mandalorians. But with that, at least more to my point, and to bring it back to this actual episode, there's a moment in here that really makes me think we're keeping Din around, and it is when Bo-Katan's talking to Grogu, and she calls him your father. This is the first time that it has been acknowledged that Din is Grogu's dad.
Yeah, but
I went back. I looked. This is the first time we've actually said it.
And that's actually part of what makes me think that we're getting closer to Din's demise, because Star Wars historically is a space opera full of daddy issues.
But this isn't traditional Star Wars.
Daddies.
This is so much more Clone Wars. This is so much more Western than than the dramatic ass shit was. Like, Mando simultaneously exists in the same space in an entirely different space within Star Wars.
Every episode of The Mandalorian that we get is one episode closer to the end of Din's character. And I mean, fairly certain that this character does not make it out of this series, and that his downfall or an inevitable death will be a catalyst for Grogu to become the Mandalorian.
I don't know, man. Again, I think it can happen. I don't think it's happening for another 3 or 4 seasons, at least. Like, they've talked about how they don't have an ending for this series yet. And I get that can be... I don't know. I don't see it.
For me, it's just production timelines. And Pedro Pascal is great, but it's also, I mean, to take it back to the MCU, it's a Tony Stark situation of Pedro Pascal is phenomenal and no one else could play this role, but he's not getting any younger. So, like, eventually they're going to have to, I mean, granted, this is fairly different, and as it is a character that, you know, religiously keeps his helmet on, which I honestly think will change by the end of this season.
I would agree.
I don't think he's signing with the cult of the Children of the Watch. I think he will be signing with Bo-Katan, or he'll be leading up his own faction, which
I think that leads more to my religious deconstruction theory with this season.
Yeah, but I mean, once you take the mask off, that's a ticking time bomb, right?
Mm-hmm. And he's done it. He's done it already, and like, he can bathe himself as much as he wants in those waters.
He's not going to
change it.
Well,
also,
no, yeah.
Also, let's talk for a second about the brief side part. We'll get back into that. Those waters.
Right. Yeah.
So is Din pulled under, or can Din just not swim? Because I know Din was pulled under, but I would love the idea of like, oh yeah, Din just can't swim. That would be absolutely hilarious to me.
The way my brain worked at that was he took off his gear, which probably included his jetpack.
It did. We watched him take his jetpack off.
So him taking the jetpack off, Beskar is not light. He's wearing a suit of metal. That'd be like trying to jump into the ocean wearing a suit of armor. You're going to sink. It's going to be very difficult for you to, resurface.
I'm sorry. So jumping into the water in a suit of armor is like jumping into the water in a suit of armor.
Yeah. I was just Look, it's space metal. It could weigh 3 ounces for all we know, but it's like that.
No, I know what you're saying.
It can't be that light. It can't be light enough that would be easy enough to swim back up what looked to be like 200-300 feet.
Oh yeah. Well, the only reason, I think it's supposed to be heavily implied, right, that he was pulled under by the mythosaur.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Obviously, the ramifications of that are going to be next week's episode, right? I would not be surprised.
Will they or won't they be? I feel like they won't even discuss it. Be like, yeah, that sucked. All right, what's next? Like,
I feel like they have to discuss it because, like, it's because it's the mythosaur.
That I think they do need to discuss. It'll be interesting to see what discussion there is, if any. But for me, there's something missing, and I don't know what it is. And I feel like I want to go back and watch some Mandalorian from season 1 and 2 to figure out what it is before we get to next week.
I feel like something is missing, and I feel like that's the point.
I hope so.
Because again,
and I hope they get to the point. Because by the end of episode 1 of season 1, you were in. And by the end of episode 2 of season 3, a lot of us are sitting here like, okay, now what?
I feel like that's a power of season 3 that has definitely gone both ways. Of, cool, we know you're in. This is season 3. Give us a chance with this different type of story. And we've seen it work really well. Right. We've seen it work really poorly. Like, I'm a massive fan of the CW. We saw it work very well with one show, cough, cough, Arrow. And then we saw it work really poorly with another show, cough, cough, Flash. Like,
Flash, Supergirl,
actually,
Supernatural.
Let's back that up.
Riverdale.
You can say that for both of those shows with different seasons. We've seen it work really well. We've seen it work fairly poorly.
Yeah.
I'm giving Griffin, Mando the chance.
You drawing comparisons between Mandalorian and CW shows is not a compliment to the Mandalorian, just so you are aware.
Oh, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying in show type. Because honestly, I don't think this has any conversation.
Just be careful of the line that you are towing.
I'm rewatching The Flash right now.
Why? Why are you doing this to yourself?
Because it's the last season. The last season's coming out. The last season just wrapped up filming.
I watched like 14 seasons of Supernatural. I didn't go back for the last one.
Because I stopped watching a few seasons ago and I want to catch up before the new season, okay? Let me have this.
You can have whatever you want.
Look,
as long as I can have my Marvel Snap, you can have whatever
the real reason I'm rewatching it is because I need something to watch while I'm working and it needs to be something I've seen before.
So put on Clone Wars.
I've done that already.
Rebels?
Done that already.
Bad Batch?
I have to sit down and watch that because it's coming out still.
I gotta watch this week's. I'm excited to put that on.
Yeah, I still haven't watched that, but it's Wednesday. What do you expect from us?
No, Mandalorian talk, followed by, hopefully, shortly thereafter, Secret Invasion talk. And if you want to be here for that Secret Invasion talk, be sure wherever you are listening to this, whether it be a TikTok or wherever, go and find it on the platforms that you like, whether that be the YouTubes or the podcasts or wherever it is, and make sure you hit the button so that we're in your ear holes when that starts.
Yes, come hang out with us. Let us know. Come see us for those things. Now, I'm really excited to see the rest of the season, though. I think regardless of where you fall in these last couple episodes, this episode being... By the way, we haven't even talked about how dark this episode is. And I don't mean that in terms of tone. I mean that in terms of lighting.
This was like Game of Thrones level of, what is that?
Which I get it. Like 90% of this episode is in a cave. I get it. But also, I was still able to see everything fine. It was just kind of dark. And I think it kind of led itself to some of those fun moments. Oh, here's a moment we need to talk about that was really weird and random, is they kind of just threw away the IG-88 storyline.
Yeah. They didn't throw it away.
They more like pushed it to the side for now.
Yeah. It's not the goal at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The goal was Mandalore. They did the Mandalore. He's got an R5 unit now that he's not super upset at.
Again, I still think they just started the Mandalore. Like, I don't think they would have shown as much of the ruins as they did without going there.
I hope so.
I mean, it's like screenwriting basics of like, if you're going to show something, chances are you're going to go there. Unless it's being shown for a very specific reason, and no reasons were shown yet. Other than, hey, it looks pretty. Like, the ruins of the Crown City of Mandalore look fucking cool. Also, Bo-Katan, like, flying in there, and again, just props to the acting on that one of, like, the change in her face when she sees the ruins.
Well, there's that. There's the change in her demeanor when she realizes Mando isn't with Grogu. There's the action scene. Like, honestly, Bo-Katan is the star of this episode. Mando's kind of gets his ass handed to him, and Bo-Katan is just a total badass from start to finish.
That moment when the Grogu showing up on his own moment was probably my favorite scene of the episode. Of her of like, God damn it, I just want to be left alone. To, where is he? What's wrong? Let's go.
Yeah, just shout out to Katie Sackhoff. Like, she's
killing it.
She was phenomenal last season, and I feel like what we've gotten of her so far this season has been just awesome.
She has been perfect in that role, like, ever since she was originally cast in Clone Wars.
Yeah, the fact that has made its way through to live action is just damn near perfect.
Right? It's so good. I can't, like, this establishes she is a main character of this season, to me.
Yeah.
And is she going to be on the good side? Is she going to be on the protagonist side or the antagonist side? Well, that's for the next, like, how many long episodes is this season? I don't know.
I want to say 6.
6.
Or 8?
I want to say, I would say 8 or 10.
8.
8. Were the last
8.
2 8?
Well, this is chapter 18. Season 2 would have wrapped at chapter 16. So I'm going to say yes. Because that's how math works. What's 16 divided by 2, Griffin?
Well, yes, I know that. Okay, give me a
What's
second.
16 divided by 2, Griffin?
I know that.
I'm looking at IMDb. The answer is 8 for both the first 2 seasons.
Okay, Google has incorrect information. It's casually out here being like, yeah, season 2 of The Mandalorian was 13 episodes long. No, it was not.
I mean, technically it was like 10 if you count those 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening here, but yeah. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I don't think we've seen the last of Mandalore. And yep, you'll have to stick with us to find out.
I agree with you there. Yeah. Just going to have to tune in next week, see what we think. And hopefully, my tunes changed a bit because I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the season holds.
Mm-hmm. I've accepted that I am the overly positive one. And I'm honestly perfectly fine with that role. Thank you all for listening. Mitch, where can people find us if they want to keep up with us?
At D+Us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, eventually YouTube, podcast services of your choice. D+Us should find it anywhere. Links in all our socials, all the platform socials. You find us in one spot, it'll pretty much find you everywhere you need to be.
Yeah, go check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@D+Us. Really helps us. Yada, yada, yada. I gave those spiel at the beginning. Check out our other stuff as well, though. We got plenty of stuff up. If you are still feeling that Star Wars kick, we do have an episode out about Star Wars The Last Jedi. Do I try to fight a lot of Star Wars fans in that episode? Yeah.
Yes.
Do I try to fight James Cameron in that episode? You're going to have to listen to that one and wait and see. Yes, this is the one where I try to fight James Cameron over Avatar 2. I really need to clip that out. No, yeah, go check out that episode. It's great, but we also have trailer reacts going up as well. We have ones up for the previous Haunted Mansion trailer, as well as the previous Peter Pan and Wendy trailer, and we will be doing one soon for the upcoming Little Mermaid trailer. Yeah, Disney's giving us a lot of trailers.
Disney's giving us a lot of movies.
I'm not kidding. Between like every major episode, there's like 2 trailers that drop, and they keep doing this, and we're gonna keep reacting because they're very fun to do, and people, you all apparently like them. So, yeah, go check those out.
We got Trank and Dunk coming next week.
I mean, I'm gonna watch it, but are we really gonna talk about that movie?
No, Prom Pact, end of March.
Okay, if we're not talking about Chank and Dunk, we're definitely not talking about Prom Pact.
I was just looking at the other movies that Disney's got coming out.
One of these looks like a legitimate good movie.
Elemental, Indiana Jones, Haunted Mansion,
so much coming in the future that y'all can
Wish is this year. We haven't seen a trailer for that yet.
Yeah, we should probably get one soon. Look, here's the thing.
Probably after Little Mermaid, I would imagine.
Here's the reason I know we're getting more trailers, especially Little Mermaid, is the Oscars are on Sunday. Yeah. So, will we do a reacts to that? Probably not. But you can hang out.
Reacts to the Oscars or reacts to the trailer?
Reacts to the winners of the Oscars. We're not doing actual reacts to 3-hour-long production that is the Oscars awards show.
I really hope not, because I will be asleep 25 minutes in, because I don't know if you're aware of this, Griffin, but I'm old. I've started waking up at like 7:30. I'm drinking coffee now. I've got lower back pain. It's not pleasant.
Looks over at multiple coffee mugs. We were wrapping this episode up, so let's
You
wrap
live
this
in Portland.
episode
It's obvious. It's in your DNA.
I got something to tell you about that after the show. No, folks, thank you very, very much for listening.
And are you related to the Starbucks guy?
We will see y'all in next episode, and until then, have a magical day.